Hello world, welcome to a new video of Buildup Tours channel. Buildup Tours is a tour operator located in Ecuador. I am Luis Velasquez and I am the founder of Buildup Tours. Even though I try to make mainly videos about tourism and culture in Ecuador, first of all, I am an Ecuadorian. And I decided to open Buildup Tours because I want to help to the development of Ecuador through tourism. And this video is about something that is happening right now in Ecuador and that some of you have asked me about. It is the protest or the indigenous protests that are happening in Ecuador in June 2022. I am working in tourism in Ecuador because I think this is a way to help to the development of the country, to get economical means, to get income in many families in areas that sometimes see that there are not opportunities for having a better life. And I think that with tourism we can make great things. That's the main purpose of Buildup Tours. Use tourism as a tool for development. That's actually the dev in the Buildup Tours name. The Build comes from the German word building. Right now, today, Wednesday, 15th of June 2022, we have the third day of protests in Ecuador. In many of the cities, or actually in the Andes, in the cities of the Andean region, Ecuador is divided in 4 regions: Galapagos, Coastal Region, Andean region, and Amazonian region. The protests are harder in the Andean region. Why? Because this is the area where the CONAIE, which is the organization leading the protest, CONAIE, National Confederation of Indigenous Peoples of Ecuador, where they have the most members in the Andean region. And many roads are blocked because people are tired. There is actually a list of demands that CONAIE has for the government, a list of 10 petitions that they have asked the government to comply with in order to stop the protests. Both sides, President and CONAIE, have said that they have tried to go to dialogue, but the other party didn't want to. It's a complicated situation, and in this video you will have an opinion as neutral as possible. I have my own opinion and I will let you know a little bit about it, but I want you to know mainly about the facts. So I'll let you know about these 10 demands that I will put the link to the official website of the CONAIE in the description of the video. But I will tell you what's happening, what are the demands, why are the protests, what's the origin of the protests, and what we might be expecting in the new days. So if you're interested in coming to Ecuador for tourism or for relocation, I know you will find this video of interest to you. So first, we have reduction and freeze in the price of oil, First thing is that the CONAIE demands to the government is to freeze diesel to $1.50 per gallon. Right now, the price is $1.90 per gallon of diesel. It is subsidized, and it was frozen at that price because of other protests before. And the other gasoline, let's say premium, they are demanding that it is decreased to $2.10 per gallon. Right now it is in $4.76 per gallon. Okay, first, this is the main demand that they are making, that the gasoline is, the price is lowered, but they don't tell people that you cannot simply lower the prices by signing a paper. That is subsidized, and subsidizing means to lower the money for other things. Yes, we are an oil producing country. Yes, we are getting benefits because of the higher prices in the market right now. And we are actually subsidizing diesel, as I told you. Gallon right now is $1.90. But they want it to be even lower to $1.50. But they don't tell you what that will cost. Less education, less public health, less public education, because we have public education, public health. Less safety. There are many things that have to be lower in order to be able to subsidize that much. That's something we have to take into account. And I know that people that listen to me from the US, Canada, Europe know that having a diesel gallon to $1.90 is awesome. In this period of the year, in this period of the world that is so complicated. I know that in the US, the diesel gallon is over $5 at this moment. And lowering to $1.50, it is a very complicated situation. But what I am concerned about or worried is that the leaders of the protest don't tell people what subsidizing means. First thing, and one of the most important. Second, demand. Economical relief for more than 4 million families. They want that the banks and the credit unions don't charge any interest, or that give a period, like a window of 1 year for people to that can't pay, for them not to pay, and they don't collect whatever mortgage there is, because there's a lot of unemployment in Ecuador right now. Economical situation is really complicated, the economic situation, and they want banks and credit unions to stop collecting at least for 1 year the money, no? And renegotiate debts. This is something that has to be or that is related to private companies. I am not giving my opinion on this because I am not a banker. It is a complicated situation, and I understand families that are lacking a job at this moment and cannot pay. And well, because we have a history with banks here in Ecuador. 22 years ago, we had a big crisis here with the banks, and but that's maybe a story for another video. If you would like to know about Ecuador history also, and Ecuador modern history, you could let me know in the comments. Third, fair prices for the agricultural products: milk, rice, banana, onions, carrots, tomato, corn, everything. And no charge in taxes in flowers for exporting. So they basically want all the prices to be lowered, and fair prices, and also that the farmers, they get what they deserve for their products. And I would say that's fair. I'm not telling you that I disagree with the demands. I agree with many of them, but I don't agree with all. For example, the gasoline, I know what this means. To subsidize means to cut budgets for other things. But the leaders, and I want to make this clear, one thing is the indigenous leaders, and other thing is the indigenous people. Many times indigenous people don't want even to join protests, but they get fined by the leaders of the communities if they don't join the protests. It's a very complicated situation. And well, you know, this is happening worldwide. Oil prices increasing, meals increasing, all things increasing. Inflation and the currency, we have US dollar in Ecuador, as you may know. So we are also being affected by the inflation. Not as much as in the US, but we're being affected. And it is not really the government to blame on many of the things happening, like the inflation. Okay, going back to this, fair prices in the products. So they would like that farmers get paid what they deserve for their products. I agree with this. Everything has increased, but the products from the countryside, the produce of the farmers, it hasn't increased too much yet, because in a way it is controlled, and because we have lived for like the last 10-15 years with very low inflation, and then things are going up so quickly that we don't know how to act. I understand that many people don't want to increase their prices immediately as well, because you see, it's all a chain of events. Number 4, employment and labor rights. Policies and public investment to stop the labor precarization. And they demand the payments to the Social Security. In a way, I agree with this. Again, I don't agree 100% with the demands, but there are demands that I understand perfectly, and I agree with big part of them. There is a debt that the government has with Social Security. Social Security is maybe going to bankruptcy here. It is something that we pay every month, or people who has employment, not actually. It's around 3 million people of the 8 million workers in Ecuador that have Social Security. The rest don't actually pay Social Security because they are unemployed, or they don't have a formal employment. They work in the informal market, so they don't pay Social Security, taxes, and many things. And the Social Security is in a complicated situation. So people who pay the Social Security are very worried about what will happen, because when you go to the hospitals, it is a complicated situation. You have to wait a lot. Sometimes they don't have the medicines. And for people who are thinking about retirement and getting their pensions in the future, it is very uncertain what might happen. And about the labor rights, right now there are labor laws in Ecuador that cause this high unemployment, because it is very complicated to hire someone, but it is also complicated to fire someone. So that's why many people don't hire people, because if they have to fire them, they have to pay a lot, to lose a lot, and to go through many paperwork. They want to change the labor law for making it more accessible, for making employment more accessible. But the proposal that the current government made a couple of months ago was a disaster. It was like, there was an article actually where if the boss could fire the employee just for bad behavior, and the proof of bad behavior could be only the testimony of the boss, that's it. And the employee, or the dismissed employee, had to pay the former employer because of that bad attitude. Crazy. So we go from one side to the other side, one extreme to the other. 5. This is about stopping the widening of the extraction frontier of mining and oil, and protection of the territories and sources of water and fragile ecosystems. It sounds well, yes, but remember, the first demand is to subsidize the gasoline, to subsidize the oil that is also polluting. And demand number 5 is about protecting the environment. They tell you this here, but they don't tell you what we could do in order to have these other benefits, this other income that we're getting for mining and other things that actually, yeah, we have informal mining in some areas. I would say that government has done something about it in the last months, and we have the regulated mining, which is actually very regulated. So I could trust that it is being done well. But on the other hand, we're asking for subsidies to oil, and this is money we need. I think this is done, at least the regulated mining is done in a formal way and in a way that is not polluting, as per what I have seen. And this is money that we need. So we stop this, but then how do we cover education expenses, health expenses? That's something that they don't tell you, and that's something I don't like about the indigenous leader, not the indigenous peoples, the indigenous leaders that only want to seize power. They want to get to power through manipulating all of this anger, because I'm also mad at many things that the government is doing here. But I'm not going to block the roads because I know what this causes, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, demand number 6, respect to the 21 collective rights of the indigenous peoples, something they have demanded previously. Bilingual intercultural education, indigenous justice. It's many rights that the indigenous have for themselves, for their autodetermining or self-determining of their communities. They have like their own separate laws, and they want the government to respect that. In a way, this is good, I agree, but on the other hand, Ecuador has signed many treaties, UN and other organizations about human rights. And the Ecuadorian government, whoever is in power, the current president or whoever, has to respect these treaties and cannot allow that some things that indigenous might say, no, this is our law, we do what we want here, because there is a state of law. I know it's the same in Canada, in the US. There are things that cannot happen because, yes, you may have your self-determination for some stuff or for most things, but there are things that cannot be touched, especially in justice terms. Demand number 7, stop privatization of the strategic sectors. And here I could say I agree. The current government, they won the elections with an anti-left program, and this is something they offer. I mean, people voted for this, for selling things. However, there are things that are working well in the hands of the state. It's, for example, the USPS in the United States. It is a public service. It is controlled by the federal government, but it is, you could say, it works well. There are things that could be improved, but in a way it works well. Would you agree that in the United States the USPS is sold? You let me know. But here we have companies like the one bank, one of the biggest banks here, and one of the phone providers, the main phone providers. They have worked well, but actually in the last year, since the new government entered, the service has worsened. It's curious, and this is something, I mean, I'm not leftist. I'm actually a center person, and I try to be as center as possible because I think everyone has something to provide to the world, to the community. And well, if something is working well, why would we sell it? That's my main comment here. Number 8, and this is one of the most complicated things, and it actually crashes with the demand of fair prices for the farmers. In number 8, they are asking for control of prices and stopping speculation in the market of products of basic necessity. because the prices are going higher and higher. They're skyrocketing for many goods, for fertilizing, for the farmers, and for final products at the supermarkets, at the markets. And you see, they want fair prices for the farmers, but they also want lower prices in the final goods, in the final products. You who listen to me in English and are listening to me from outside Ecuador, you know that the situation in the world is extremely complicated at this moment because of what happened during the pandemic and also what's happening right now in Europe. And the prices will keep going up and up. But they don't tell you that this is a global situation. The leaders of the protests don't tell the people that this is a global situation. Actually, they are blaming the president for the prices going up and up. We use US dollar. So whatever happens with the US dollar, with the Federal Reserve, that affects us. And we're being very affected by it. Our prices are going up and up. Not as much as in the US, but they are going up. And especially because we have this diesel so subsidized in 190 per gallon. But the indigenous leaders, not the indigenous, they tell people everything's going up and this president has to do something about it. He has to lower the prices. That's demand number 8. Again, you can check this by yourselves. It will be in Spanish, but you can use Google Translator and see the demands. This is not me. This is the thing with which people are the most angry with, the rise of the prices. I am mad with it, I am worried with it, and things look like they will get worse. The thing is that this is happening worldwide. This is not the president to blame. The president is to blame for many things. I will talk about that in a moment too, but not the increase of the prices. The leaders of the protests, or the leader, the ones detained yesterday, he wants to go after power. Many people are supporting him because they are angry at the government, because the government is bad. Yes, that's true. But we could always go worse, right? Number 9, health and education. Urgent budget to face the lack of goods at the hospitals, the lack of medicine, and lack of personnel. To guarantee the access to youth to superior, to higher education, and improvement on infrastructure in schools, colleges, universities. Okay, again, public health, public education, they have to be funded in a way, but we're asking for more subsidies that will cut the budget from that. We're asking to many things, but especially the subsidies to the gasoline, and stop mining, stop extraction in many areas. But we're asking for higher budget, but they are not telling us how we can get the money. Some indigenous leaders have told that you could ask the bigger or the companies that owe the most to the state, because they have recently had debts forgiven, that they are actually charged for that debt, but that debt is actually not that high to cover all of this. But they don't tell you that. They don't tell people that. What the leaders of the protests are telling people is the government has to lower the prices. The government has to freeze the prices of oil, and the government has to increase the budget for education and health. But how? They don't tell you that. They don't give you an economic analysis or something that tells you this is what we can do. They tell you only ideas, and demands, actually, not even ideas. Demands. And these are people who lost the votes. I mean, they didn't win any votes, but they are now making demands and wanting to end with the current government. Again, the current government is not doing it well, but we could always go worse. And 10, safety, protection, and generation of public policies effective to stop the violence wave, crime in general, narc traffic, drug dealing, kidnapping, organized crime, that is threatening Ecuador. I made a video recently about safety in Ecuador. Yes, the levels of safety compared to other countries in the region in Ecuador, they are still like, okay. They are not the best. They have been getting worse lately, like in the last year. So that's why many people say this president is so terrible. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. And I also say that this president is doing bad, but well, there is no bad actually here. There is the bad is that blocking the roads, we're only destroying employment, destroying economy, because actually many farmers are losing production. There are things that have to be exported, flowers, for example, and they are being lost because they cannot get to the airports because of the roads blocks. Right now, only in the tourism sector I work at, $5 million are being lost every day, which for Ecuador, a small country, is a lot. But in other things, in the oil field, many more millions are being lost. I don't have the numbers right here, but these are things you can check. And as I'm telling you, farmers who have to send products abroad, vegetables, avocados, their produce can't get to the airports. And these are things that are not being sold here because we have overproduction for ourselves. In this part, we are covered, but these farmers, their employees, they need to sell that abroad, but the produce is being lost because it cannot get to the airport. And we're asking for a better quality of life, more safety, but we're also destroying what destroys safety, and that is job places. Those are the 10 demands. As you see, I am not making any addition on this video. I am being honest. That's what I am always trying to be. And okay, these are the demands. The president is not managing the situation very well. Actually, is managing it very bad. The leader of the protest was imprisoned yesterday, Tuesday morning by 1 a.m. Then he was processed, but he was released. I mean, he was accused of breaking the law and stopping basic services, blocking roads in the country. And he is forbidden to leave the country, and he has to attend the court like once a week. But he's on the streets, and he said that the protests won't stop, that the government has to comply with these demands, or they won't stop the protests. That's the dialogue they will have, because they tried to dialogue and the government didn't hear. That's what they say, because the government says, we try to dialogue, but they don't want to dialogue. It's a very complicated situation in that aspect. And as I told you, yeah, there are problems in Ecuador. People are angry, and especially because of the economic situation, people are thinking, what are we going to do? And with that anger, these leaders are manipulating many people. And other people are not being manipulated, but they are so angry at the government that they will join the protests to overthrow the government. The thing is, what would happen later? And the government is doing so bad managing this, because they are, first, they detained the leader of the protests, not in the best way, or not in a correct way. Let's say, legally speaking, it was not a right process. First thing. Second thing, the president said, we are not dealing with violent people. And then he disappeared like for one day. People didn't know where he was, what he was doing. And in the middle of this situation, Then he made a tweet about Ukraine, but when we had half the country blocked, with the roads blocked, unbelievable. Then they are not telling people that what subsidizing oil means, for example, that's something they could do. Explains that would mean cutting budget from other things. But they don't tell people that. About safety, yes, the government has been doing very bad, and as I'm telling you, safety, it's been getting worse during the last year. It's not something like alarming yet, but if it keeps in the same rhythm, it would be alarming soon. So people are very worried about this too, because the government is like, well, we still have lower numbers than Mexico and Colombia, and I am quoting, so it is not something to be worried about, the numbers of or the amounts of crime in Ecuador. And I am quoting, that's the president. And also they are not, also they are making a lot of propaganda saying that they have been doing very well during the last year, that the government is trying to solve the mess of the previous governments, and that it is very difficult, but that they are doing great. But people are not seeing anything of that on the streets, so of course we are mad at what the government's doing. So what might be, sorry, I'm thinking a lot in Spanish right now, but what might we be expecting in the next few days? At this moment, Wednesday, 15th of June night, I am in Cuenca, and we're starting to have lack of gas, for example, because the trucks that bring the gas cannot come here. The roads are blocked. We cannot go to Quito. To Guayaquil, it's being partially opened, but then it's closed again. It's, again, complicated. I think that's the word that I have repeated the most on this video. You may travel by plane, and you can move along in the city and in the outskirts, no problem. But if you want to move from Cuenca to Quito, for example, to the big cities, the roads are blocked. And in Quito, the situation is getting worse because that's where the presidential palace is. That's where the president lives. And the indigenous, the National Confederation of Indigenous Peoples, have called the indigenous people to go to Quito to protest there, so that the president feels the pressure of the indigenous peoples. And more indigenous are going there day after day. This is our third day, tomorrow will be the fourth day, and more indigenous were going there today. What will happen? We don't really know. It might get worse. It might get the same. Why don't we know? What is so uncertain if people are mad at the government? Because even though people are mad at the government, like I am, many people don't support the Confederation of Indigenous Peoples, because the leaders here, they have shown, they have proved in other moments that they only want to get the power, and get the power for developing a project of theirs that they haven't been able to win through the votes. People don't want that project. And especially we had some protests 3 years ago in October 2019, led by these people as well. And after that, the country lost a lot. Many farms had their animals die because they couldn't get the feed. Many other things, they lost their produce. Many companies that were getting contracts with companies abroad, they lost their contracts because they say, I cannot deal with you. Many tourists who were coming to Ecuador, they were stuck at the airport. Many others canceled their trips. Some of you that are watching this video to this point, and I appreciate you if you have stayed so far, you know what I'm talking about. And after that, the country lost a lot. So many people learned that blocking the roads, blocking our economy, making our products being lost, and letting ourselves be manipulated by people who want only power and don't tell you that this is a global situation, that we have to act together for getting through it in the best way, and obeying them or looking after their interests is not the best way to deal with this. So that's why it is very uncertain. In October 2019, I would say that 60% people agreed with the protests. But now maybe 40%. So it's very uncertain. It's very uncertain what might happen. There are three scenarios, I would say. First scenario is that the government starts subsidizing oil only for public transportation and very specific things that they actually promised. The previous government promised they were going to do that. They didn't do it. This government has not worked on that. And say, okay, we're going to give away and we're going to comply with some of your demands so that the people see that the government will do something about the people's demands. Because yes, in these 10 demands there are people's demands. The other scenario is that they overthrow the government because they will get more and more violent. And number 3 is that the government gets more violent and imprisons the leaders, and this stops in the most violent way. But I don't really think that will happen, because that would be only trying to turn off the fire with more oil, you know. Well, this was not a scripted video. This was more of a declaration of mine. But I will keep you informed. You may follow me on Instagram. I will be posting some stories real time there. And you may ask me questions in the comments about what you would like, and maybe I make a questions and answers video about the situation with your specific questions. As a human, I really hope this goes the best way, because we have a very complicated global situation. Also, as an Ecuadorian, I hope we go in the best way out of this as soon as possible, because we are losing. So people cannot come here, people cannot get out of here, and we will get lack of some basic goods in a few days if this continues like this. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Remember to make your questions. I'm open to that. Maybe I'll make a live session, but I prefer to make a questions and answers. So leave your questions. Remember to follow me on the social media. Instagram, you find me as Vildev Tours. And well, if you have more personal questions about relocation to Ecuador or tourism, you may also send me an email to info@vildevtours.com. Thank you very much for watching the video until this point, and see you next time. Bye bye.